Bruce Wolf and Sean Thompson in for Dan and Amy. And, I come from a background of clout. My grandfather was a 50th Ward Democratic precinct captain.
Really?
And in the old days, and I'm going to use this, I'm going to couch this very carefully because it's a politically incorrect term. When you had a sponsor like Bernie Nystine of the 29th Ward and he was helping you out, you'd call him your Chinaman.
Really?
Okay? Your Chinaman. And
well, you think with clout like that, you'd have better shoes on.
Exactly.
I mean, really?
So I'm a little familiar with this. Well, somebody who's even more familiar with this, who's worked extensively in this area, is Faisal Khan. He's the CEO of Project 6. He's the former legislative inspector general of the Chicago City Council. Thanks for coming on the show, Faisal. We appreciate it.
No, thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate that, too.
So I'm reading this story, and it's just so illuminating. And if you could detail it for us. The battle between Chicago's Double Door music venue, and a lot of people have followed this, the Double Door closed down. There was a war between, it's essentially between the owner and the tenant, and this is a private dispute, and you'd think that would be the end of it when the owner got the tenant out of there. But no, because there's an alderman in the first ward, and it's not Fred Rohde anymore.
Can I guess who won?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
But it's not Fred Rohde in the first ward anymore. It's Proco Joe Marino, and apparently he decides to get involved in this and act as the lawyer, manager, and real estate agent for the Double Door owners, even though they didn't ask for it. And why don't you take it from there, Faisal?
Sure, guys. So you covered it pretty well. So thanks there. Double Door and the owners of the building, the Strauss family, had a dispute, like unfortunately happens between landlords and tenants all the time. The dispute took a while and eventually went to court, where Double Door was evicted from the building. Whether rightly or wrongly really is irrelevant. After they evicted, the alderman from the first ward, a recipient of thousands of dollars from Double Door, decided to intervene on their behalf and basically threatened the alderman, telling him that he needed to rent to Double Door again at a discounted rate. And if he didn't, he would downzone their property so they would never see a dime of income from that place ever again. This conversation was completely recorded outside the building on video, and it's available to see at thesecret6.com, our website. And you basically see an alderman, guys, who thinks he's above the law, that even after a court has ruled, his opinion is more valid, and he inserts himself into a private dispute between two parties.
So when does the U.S. attorney get involved and throw him in jail?
Great question. I think I know where you guys can direct that. Unfortunately, I won't be able to answer that for you.
So, Faisal, it seems to me that New York invented political corruption and New Jersey perfected it, but Chicago made it an art form. And this happens in the broad daylight right in front of us, whether it's Patty Blagojevich working for Tony Resko, whether and it all seems to stem around some sort of real estate, some sort of variance, some sort of a scam where government has a monopoly on it and they use legislation as a spear. But how do we stop them from driving around in Bentleys and us from paying them off? Because pay to play is out in the sunshine and nobody seems to care.
No, you're absolutely right. It is absolutely out in the sunshine. And I disagree a little. I think people do care, and that's why we start seeing videotapes of this. We start seeing complaints come in. We have a lot of people call us at Project 6 to tell us about situations like this. And the best we can do is keep shining a light on it and hope that our law enforcement authorities are paying attention.
Well, Faisal, when video game operators and marijuana distributors stop being lobbyists, I'll start believing we're making headway. Until then, I think we're losing. I think they've built a system that is insulated and it is corrupt, and we don't have a way to tear down the walls. I really do.
No, you know what? It's hard to argue with your position because we see this happening every day, right? Yeah. Unfortunately, this is a way of life in Chicago. And we need Chicagoans to get their outrage back. They have to get angry about this again.
Well, they better listen to the show.
In this system.
I'm just curious, Faisal, you are shining a light on it, and we're helping a little bit. Have you gotten a lot of, because I live out of town, and I don't pay attention to this, and they just drop me in here every Punta Cana vacation. But, I mean, have you gotten a lot of coverage on this particular dispute and what Marino did?
Yeah, CBS 2 ran it the other night at their 10 o'clock hour. So the video is out there. So people are upset. We're seeing a lot of response on our social media communication sites. And other people are coming forward to describe similar problems, if not just had with Proco Joe Moreno, but with other aldermen. The best thing we can always hope for is the reaction and the catalyst effect it becomes in reporting other scenarios that are similar similar to this.
And I don't expect you to, play the devil's advocate here, but has Marino given any kind of defense for his activities?
Well, he's given a litany of defenses, all which seems to be inconsistent with the other. Look, we don't have a problem with an alderman advocating for what's best for his community or her community. We understand that. But there's a fine line between being an advocate and being a bully, and Mr. Moreno himself admits he was a bully. And he picked sides in a private dispute after a court had already ruled. We have city departments that handle problems like this if there's a problem in the building. Mr. Moreno threatened this building owner, said he's going to have inspectors at his building every day if he doesn't.
Oh, we send out the building inspectors. My grandfather was a building inspector. First he was, first he got a job at the racetrack. Not at the racetrack. He used to go to the racetrack. First he was an administrative assistant for Cook County, but then he got a job as a building inspector. So we know how those are used as a weapon as well, Faisal.
Yeah, well, we'll have that conversation about patronage jobs when you bring me back one day.
Well, you know what, Faisal? In my neighborhood, gangsters have the courage to stick a gun in your mouth, slap you around, and take your money. I have more respect for them than these frauds that use law and their power to get the same result. It's outrageous to me.
Can't argue with you. Your argument is sound.
Faisal Khan, we can reach you. You're at P6Khan, Khan, on Twitter, and you're the CEO of Project 6. Former Legislative Inspector General of the Chicago City Council. Thanks for shining a light on something.
Guys, thanks for having me on. I
Appreciate it.
appreciate you shining a light on it.
Thank you. Faisal Khan joining us this morning. And
it's an outrageous story. It really is. Outrageous. You know why I've opened a business recently, and I've had something similar happen to me very recently. I don't know if I can even talk about it. We got to get my lawyer on here. Yeah. But the same thing. These bureaucrats, these useless, good for nothing, do nothing, waiting for their pensions to kick in. They utilize their false, made up power to extort you. It's always about the money. And this lowlife. Anybody want to guess what kind of car he's got in the garage under a tarp?
Oh, we should allow Alderman Marino to come on.
I'd love you to impress me with your wisdom
because
and your power.
I don't want to pass judgment before.
I do.
All right. Well, you pass judgment on the callers before they even get a chance to talk.
Pass judgment on Roger Ailes before he chilled off.
Our top story. We have two top stories this morning, and one is Trump reacting to the criticism or to the naming of the special counsel. Trump calling the whole thing a witch hunt. And also Roger Ailes, the founder of the Fox Network, dead at the age of 77.
Also in a girdle.
As bad a guy as he was, he created the Fox Network. And I remember when, at the time it was created, I was working in television, and everybody thought, in TV thought, what do we need this for? It's at best superfluous. We've got it all covered, because in their myopic view, they had it all covered. But they didn't believe in diversity of opinion or in a diverse way of presenting the news. And Ailes brought in, and they made fun of the blonde bimbos that they brought in, but then he brought in blonde bimbos who actually were smart.
I was a big fan until he adopted the William Randolph Hearst of he who controls the information controls the perception. I watched Fox religiously. Anybody that knows me knows that. It's when they started to become a cheerleader for Keynesian economics, and you still see it today, that I don't watch it anymore.
Well,
so
they're
it's
not
time
all
for a
that
new
way.
one.
Yeah, right. They have gone into the Trump camp a little bit.
Now his kids are going to take over anyway. Murdoch's kids.
Right.
Ding and Ling, two trust fund babies. Yeah, you take charge. Let me see how that goes.
All right, Dan and Amy are going to be reporting from Punta Cana.